Good afternoon, everyone, and panelists. So this is a technology and healthcare session. And we're going to take 40 minutes for panel discussion, followed by 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A session. And I am Sho. I'm a medical doctor myself, and I'm an entrepreneur as well. I run a medical AI startup here in Japan. And I'm so excited to invite Peter, Kay, and Anna, who are all professionals from various backgrounds. And today, we're going to discuss about healthcare technology, especially regarding AI or digitalization or generative AIs and those kind of keywords. And I would like to jump straight into the topic. So, yes, Peter, could you please give us a brief introduction of yourself and some actions or initiatives that you're taking?
Sure. Well, first, thank you very much for having me here in this discussion. I'm happy to contribute. And I'm a trained PhD. I got my PhD in the German Cancer Research Center, worked at NIH in the United States subsequently. And my main topic was gene control. So I was studying genes that can, upon introduction in stem cell, direct the full program, make insulin-producing cells, make eyes. This is what I was studying, but subsequently, I was asked to run one of the most prestigious research organizations on the globe, Max Planck Society. And I've done that for 12 years before I then went and was asked for 6 years to OIST. So I'm quite happy. I was quite happy at OIST at contributing to the Japanese sciences as a whole. But I also have a strong interface, I might say, with the industry. I was in the Siemens Supervisory Board, and I was the chair of the Siemens Technology and Innovation Council. Also, I was the non-executive director at Actelion, a biotech company in Switzerland. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Peter. Oh, so after leading the Max Planck Society, how do you view Japan or the Japanese people acting towards healthcare problems? Because we're the most aged country nationally.
Absolutely. I think there is a dire need that Japan looks at itself, takes care of the elderly. And I might say, even though we haven't really entered the discussion yet, AI will contribute quite substantially in our understanding of longevity. We have batteries of genes that we already understand. Japan needs to do this, but Japan needs to also, and we had this today in many panels, Japan needs to educate young people, be more innovative, and bring in foreign talent. On top of this, I think in Japan, the contribution of women in science and in general really needs to be improved. So that wasn't really an answer along the lines of AI, but the aging problem. This is a problem which is currently cutting edge, and I could go into this if you wish me to.
Thank you. And how about Kay? Could you introduce yourself and your experience in this healthcare field?
Sure. Thanks, Sho. Hello, everyone. I'm Kei Kutsuno. I currently serve as a director of the Translational Research Division at Chuga Pharmaceutical. I'm a medical doctor by training as well. And before joining Chuga half a year ago, I used to work for the World Bank and also the Global Health Innovative Technology Fund, which is the GE Fund, which is a public-private partnership funding agency that invests in global health R&D. So I think I'm really looking forward to the discussion in terms of a sort of AI and digital health technologies are in place in the biopharmaceutical industry. And I think I just also need to add a disclaimer that none of my comments today, my comments today will be my personal viewpoints, not necessarily representing the company's viewpoint. So with that, I look forward to it.
So, Kay, you have a very unique professional experience. You were a medical doctor, and then you went to the World Bank, and then you served for the Japanese, funding agency, half run by the government, half run public. So, what are your thoughts about the healthcare industry utilizing digitalization or AI technology?
Sure, thanks, Cheryl. I can only say that the impact of these new technologies, be it AI or digital health technologies, these impact that we have seen in the pharmaceutical industry are phenomenal, literally speaking. And there's so many examples I'd like to share, but given the limited amount of time we have today, I think I can think of a few examples that I can share with you. So first and foremost, there is this great impact by with AI and digital health technologies in the drug discovery process. So as some of you might probably know, Chugai Pharmaceutical takes pride in the discovery and development of new antibodies or monoclonal antibodies for various disease areas. And as you know, from the discovery all the way to the development stage, there are quite a few development stages and milestones you have to overcome. And then there are these particular phases called lead optimization, lead identification. And for instance, Chugai Pharmaceutical has this new system called Molexa, which sounds a little bit like a home device that many of you might probably have at home. But in any case, Molexa is short for machine learning with antibody, Molexa. So that this particular system has enabled people to identify new promising antibodies and also optimizing them in a much more efficient way and a faster way. So that's one example that we're using AI technology in this drug discovery processes. And there's many other examples, such as digital using AI algorithm to pathological review and analysis of the images for diagnosing several diseases. And some evidence or data show that it's actually a few thousand times higher than doing so manually by human beings. And there is another example, such as digital biomarker. Traditionally or conventionally speaking, it's been pretty difficult to quantitate the biomarkers, but we have recently developed. We are seeing the development of digital biomarker. And for instance, Chugai works with Bioformis, which is a venture company, to develop a wearable device that essentially detects the vital signs to quantitate the pain scale for the patients of endometriosis. So these are just a simple, very few examples of using these technology in the biopharmaceutical industry, but there are far more to it. So again, we have seen a dramatic change that has been introduced and implemented by the introduction of these new technologies.
Wow, great. I've heard about Molexa for the first time. So you're going to say, Molexa, show me some of the undiscovered blockbusters, right?
Okay. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Yeah, I'm just joking. So please, Anna-san, could you tell us about yourself?
Yes, thank you. It's an honor to be here. My name is Anna Nakayasu. I am currently working on the investment team at Globus Capital Partners. I only recently joined Globus last year, so this is actually my first G1, and I'm very excited to be here. So my background is I started my career as a physician practicing OBGYN for 3.5 years, but decided that I wanted to contribute to healthcare from the business angle and pursued an MBA to figure out what career path I wanted to take. I ended up at Stanford, which, as you all know, is famous for startup and innovation. So I became very interested and fascinated by the world of venture and how to leverage that in order to change the healthcare ecosystem. So decided to pursue my career in VC. And here I am. And a couple of initiatives I'm working on in healthcare. One is obviously as a venture capitalist, I spend a lot of my time looking at healthcare and life sciences. So we are a general fund, so I do look at other types of deals as well, but I do spend a lot of my time in the healthcare space. And it's very exciting to be in a place where I can speak to a lot of startups changing the industry. Second is I run a nonprofit called Japan Healthcare Innovation Hub. It's a community of about 1,700 individuals who are all interested to make some sort of innovative change to healthcare. In this industry, it's very important to collaborate cross-sector. So it's not just startups, or it's not just VCs, or it's not just corporates, but it's everyone working together. So I'm creating an ecosystem for everyone to collaborate side by side. And third, actually, this is just a couple of weeks ago, but I started a podcast in the medical AI space with a couple of colleagues. So I myself is spending a lot of time learning more about the space from more of the academia side through the commercialization side. So those are a couple of things that I'm working on in the space.
Yeah, thanks. And may I ask, how does your expertise in medicine or your background help you find, an expert, splendid startups, especially in the healthcare section?
Yeah, thank you. So I actually someone asked me this question last week. How does being an OBGYN in particular help me see startups? And I think, being a physician itself helps me figure out whatever the healthcare startup is working on, how will it impact the clinical space? It's much easier for someone who doesn't have experience in the clinical space to see what the impact will be in the clinical space. But on top of that, being an OBGYN, I think I was fortunate to do surgery. I was also fortunate to do inpatient care, different hormone care. I was also able to work closely with pediatrician, regulatory as well. And I think it just gave me a very broad view of different players in the ecosystem. So I'm very thankful for the experience, and I love to continue applying it to work with very innovative startups.
Great. Thank you. So I'd like to come to another question, and I want to ask each of the panelists about your views regarding the positive changes that the AI is about to bring us.
The AI, we should remember, is a platform technology. And that platform technology is literally applicable in, I would say, virtually all of medicine. There are 3 areas where AI makes a real difference. First is diagnosis. Second is drug discovery. And third is personalized medicine. The last one wouldn't be possible without AI because you need hundreds of thousands of genomes in order to classify which of the genes may cause XYZ. See, there are only about 2,500 genetic mutations that where a single mutation would be enough. But all the others are literally hidden because you need multiple factors. That's the first thing. Second thing, and now I come back to the aging. During the course of our life, you get an imprint. Your experiences are put onto your DNA. And this experience will then be readable by AI. As a matter of fact, in a recent study, they have looked at centenarians, or at least octogenarians, and they have found genes which are specifically changed during the course of the life in those people. So to have a database that allows you to access all kinds of genomes, which is stratified and harmonized, is crucial, but it doesn't exist. Because every country is cooking its own food. In Japan, by the way, when I'm talking about the latter point about personalized medicine, you have a very interesting database, which to my mind is underused. It's the Tohoku Megabase. They have a couple of thousand genomes from quote unquote healthy Japanese individuals longitudinally. So they have clinical data, they have data when you're young, they have data when you're mid-age and older. It's a tremendous source, but one has to make it more available. Plus, you have to combine this information with all the databases that exist around the globe. UK Biobank, NIH Bank, you name it. So this is crucial for personalized medicine. Why? Because it gives for each individual a perspective, even when the person is not ill yet. You can literally see very often, not always, you can see from the genome that there is let's say, a susceptibility for a certain disease. And I give you one, it's one of the most, let's say, famous example. It's a gene that is causing cancer, BRCA1. It's a repair gene, mostly active in breast tissue. And this gene was mutated, so both alleles were mutated in a particular person, Angelina Jolie. And the consequence is very simple. Angelina Jolie lost her grandmother, her mother, and her aunt due to cancer. So she made a very strict decision to make sure that there's no breast tissue left, in order for her to be susceptible for breast cancer. I hope I get later a chance to talk about diagnosis and also the detection of new drugs. But for the time being, I pass on to.
Yeah, sure. I'll surely come back to that. And maybe Anna-san, could you tell us some of your views regarding the positive changes?
Sure, I thought it was going to go in this direction. So I think 3 points thinking about AI's positive impact to healthcare. So one is similarly to what Peter mentioned, but personalization. 2 is democratization of care, and 3 is empowerment. So I'm not going to dig too much into personalization because Peter spoke a lot to it, but I think more patients just have control of their own health data. More physicians have control of their patients' data, and that really helps to personalize different experiences for the patient, which is, I think just a completely new era. I see a lot of startups working on personalized care for different verticals, so this is a great time to be in. Second is democratization of care, which I think is super interesting. So one of the strengths of AI is it actually gives physicians the power to provide care in things that they weren't good at before. So before you had to be an expert physician for a certain disease to be able to provide the best care in the world. But now even an average physician can leverage the power of an AI to give the same quality of care as an expert physician, which I think is very interesting. So on the care provider side, it just empowers them to provide, democratizes their ability to provide care. And on the patient side, it democratizes their access to receive the best care they possibly could wherever they are. I'm seeing a lot of startups in this space, particularly I think OBGYN and cancer care are the most spaces I'm seeing startups in. So especially for OBGYN, IVF is a big issue in this era. And not everyone has access to good IVF care. So leveraging the power of these startups, you can go to a regular neighborhood OBGYN clinic who maybe necessarily not have had the best IVF results to date. But now with the power of AI and the work that these startups are doing, they can get access to top class care and, potentially have the baby that they could not have before. In the oncology space too, people may not have had, if you are living in maybe, a rural part of Japan, for example, you only have access to a small clinic in the local area whose doctor may not know what the first line treatment the best class treatment is in the moment. But now leveraging the power of AI, they can get care that maybe someone at MD Anderson can only give. So this is a great time to be. And then I think third is empowerment, as I mentioned. This I'm mentioning it as empowerment for doctors and other healthcare professionals. So I think through COVID, the world realized that doctors and and nurses and all healthcare professionals were very burnt out. And now we are able to leverage AI to make work more efficient, and we are able to just empower healthcare professionals to do their work better, which is great. We are seeing a lot of startups in this space too, so I'm continuing to dig into the space and see if there might be an interesting startup I would like to invest in.
That is actually very interesting. And I came up with this question, regarding doctors. And so in this era of AI, what's the difference, or what differentiates a great doctor from an average doctor? We get access to all the information via AI, right? So what would you say?
The difference is enormous, but also ethically relevant. Let's go a little bit into diagnosis. There were papers where a pathologist, or rather in this case, it was a study with about 10, 12 pathologists, had to evaluate a particular tumor tissue. So those pathologists, well trained, were only slightly worse than AI. But the difference was that AI had the result in 1 to 2 minutes. The pathologist took 20 to 30 minutes. So AI obviously will be a tool, let's call it clinician support. It can support any doctor. And the critical issue that I find one has to address is, if a doctor gets now an instrument that is apparently better than his own judgment, what do you do if you feel different from the suggestion of AI? So that's an issue, I believe, that is ethical relevant. In all other terms, AI is a fantastic tool for diagnostics. Take all this huge equipment in clinics, MRI, CT, X-ray, all those machines by now are fed with AI information. So let's just make another, say, Gedankenexperiment. If you have a brain tumor, you go into an MRI machine and the total information stored or available will be able to tell the doctor what the probability is that this tumor is what it is. So it is a fantastic tool for doctors, but it's also a tool that I should say is, cannot be afforded by every clinic. So I came across in my Siemens time an incredibly nice technology. And that technology, again, I come back to breast tumors. That technology allowed the diagnosis of breast tumors cheaper, faster, and more precise for almost nothing. I'll tell you what it is. It is an AI database of breast tumors and a simple heat detector device. I'm sure during COVID, you all walked through the entrance of the airports, and there's a heat sensor. So they would tell you immediately if you have fever. It's nothing more than that, except a bit more refined, costs about $800. But the resolution power is greater than any tomography, and they distinguish between benign tumor and malignant tumor. So what I'm saying, AI also will save money, because this type of analysis can spread, and by now it is spreading all over India, and like Kathy showed me yesterday, the first is now operating in Germany. But it's nothing, it's $800, so you can go literally into any country low-budget countries, Africa, maybe South America, maybe parts of Asia, in order to then employ a new technology that would not exist without AI.
Right. I want to ask Kay, how can we human beings cope with these kind of medical, ethical, social problems? Do you think is there a way?
Sure. Sorry. Thanks, Joe. It's a really important question, and I have to say that I don't really have the perfect answer for that. But I just wanted to mention that, I mean, it's pretty obvious that by the introduction of these new types of technologies, then it's become even, much more efficient and much faster to develop, for instance, new drugs or vaccines or even diagnostics. So it's pretty evident for everyone, I think. But I also think that I'm sure the show would take us to the disadvantages and so also pitfalls and sort of discussion later on. But I really would like to emphasize the fact that it's not a silver bullet sort of solution. It also comes with a lot of potential concerns, etc. So I'm not sure if this is the right metaphor to use, but I feel like, these new AI or digital health technologies are almost like, having, not this show, but show, the baseball player in the United States, the Superman super player in the team. But of course, that person himself or herself is not the only one solution. There should be a concerted effort amongst a lot of stakeholders, and especially in the medical and biopharmaceutical industry. I think there's definitely human or humane aspects, which is a little bit far from the AI side, right? Compassion, really understanding what the patient's needs are. So these are the elements that we definitely have to remember in utilizing these new technologies. So I really think it's really the combination of having the, super player in the team. And along with that, we are human beings. So that element should definitely come along with that. So that just want to comment on top.
Yeah, great, thanks. And I actually want to come back to Peter, the comment you said about longevity. Since you worked in OIST, the Okinawa Institute for Science and Technology, Okinawa is well known for its longevity, right? And there should be a clue within the genome of the people living there. Is there an expected change within 5 to 10 years regarding our longevity or health expectancy?
Unfortunately, even in Japan, OIS is not, on average, doesn't have the oldest population anymore. And whoever of you has visited Okinawa will know why. Because it's full of McDonald's, burgers, chickens, things, and the likes. And people start eating unhealthy food. It's very simple from my point of view. They have lived very healthy. In the earlier years, they lived also in a state where you barely had enough food. All of this contributed to longevity, to long life. And like I said, we are now in a process of identifying the hallmarks of aging. And depending how you look at it, there are 6 to 8 areas that need to be addressed if you want to understand aging. It's not like a switch. It's not like one size fits all. No, it's very different, and it has to be addressed differently. I don't want to go in detail, but obviously, I quoted this one study where people have discovered what's called epigenetic changes on the DNA of elderly people. Now, I also would like to pour some water in the wine of the elderly in Okinawa, because I talked to a clinician very famous in Okinawa, who has actually studied the old people throughout his life. And then I asked him, so what's happening to these people? Where are they if they are 80, 90 plus? And the answer was most of them are in caretaking facilities because they have Alzheimer. So what am I saying? Longevity alone is not good. Longevity is good if you are healthy. So we have to combine this with the studies on how to grow old and stay healthy.
Thank you, Peter.
Can I dig into the longevity piece?
Sure.
Okay. So I know that the Japanese government wants to build healthcare into an industry where we can export to the rest of the world. So from that perspective, one of the things that I think is strengths of Japan is the longevity, or expertise in longevity, as you mentioned. So I'm curious to hear how you think about that, how you see longevity research or longevity care, any healthcare AI technologies around longevity. How can we develop it as a strength of Japan and into something that we can export to the rest of the country as one of the world's fastest aging population? I don't know if any one of you have something you'd like to chime in here.
Okay. Talking about longevity, in Japan, our life expectancy is, improving 0.3 years each year, which means that, if we live 10 years, we get a credit for 3 years, right? So if we were to live another 30 years, we would have a return of 9 years. That's a huge ROI, right? So, and what's making the progress is, one, the change in our social behavior. And the second is the healthcare ecosystem being built up. And three, it's the change that is awaiting us is the genome editing, including the imprints that Peter has mentioned about. Okay. Any views, Kay?
I think it's Peter just mentioned a really important point in terms of the risk of just simply looking at the longevity. In the case of, for instance, Okinawa, I think it was really intriguing to hear the story from Peter. And I think in the medical area, I think we use not only the longevity but also quality adjusted life years. So there are multiple aspects you have to consider in doing research for this type of things. And as Anna mentioned, we as in Japan, as like it or not, we are separation society. So by closely looking at the data set, not only longevity but also qualities and many other elements and parameters, then I think it's possible to identify what exactly are the important aspects to consider these points. So it's not really crystal clear answer to that, but yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe I can add a little bit of more recent news. Just because the Nobel Prize was given about a week ago to a technology that would be unthinkable without AI. And what I'm talking about is the possibility to now predict the protein structure of almost every gene based on your primary DNA. And this was absolutely incredible. And unthinkable, but by means of hundreds of structures. I should explain for those who do not work in molecular genetics every day, the protein is the workhorse. The DNA is the information. So this information of the DNA has to be translated into a protein, which is the workhorse. So if you want to talk about having a new drug, you better know the structure and function which you deduce from the structure of a protein. So that is an amazing feat, and it was done by AlphaFold, a Google company, based on AI. And I must say for the people that do drug discovery, now the predictive value of how to block or enhance the function of a protein is enormous. So that's a thing that rightfully, in my mind, has been awarded the Nobel Prize about a week ago.
Okay, please share some comments from your side, since you worked for finding molecule worth investing. How do you see this Nobel Chemistry Prize?
Sure. I think it's as Peter mentioned around a week ago. I think that the news was really interesting to all of us, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm not going to repeat what I just mentioned in terms of the potential that these new technologies could bring to the medical and biopharmaceutical industry, but I just also wanted to mention that it's not only for the profitable area, so to speak. So for instance, I currently belong to a pharmaceutical company, so essentially it's a profitable area. But in my previous assignment, where I was primarily looking at those infectious diseases that are primarily affecting the population in low and middle income countries, it's even these new technologies are even in place for the drug discovery and development processes for non-profitable area, be it malaria or the neglected tropical diseases, these infectious diseases that you don't really see in Japan or the United States or Europe. So I think the impact of these new technologies are really literally phenomenal. So I feel that we definitely have to make the most of these possible opportunities here.
Please speak.
If I may, because I'm so excited about another thing. We are currently, and there's one company that is particularly focusing on that, that's Roche in Switzerland. And you have to know, in his field of drug discovery, usually you have to screen large, say, cell or bacteria in order to discover which particular drug will react with a receptor or whatnot. And what we can do now, by combining stem cell technology, so let's say you have a patient that has some sort of a kidney failure, just for the sake of the argument. So you take a little bit of skin. From the skin, you produce a stem cell. And now comes the point. This stem cell you can grow into a small organ called organoid. So it's a small kidney in the dish. And you can do this 1,000 folds. And now, unlike in the past where you had, let's say, very dumb monolayers, all of a sudden you have the organ that you want to address with a particular drug that the pharmacological industry will deliver. Absolutely amazing. And, it's so visionary from Roche to invest now in this in order then in maybe 5 to 10 years to have drugs for organs that are patient-specific. That's the key, patient-specific.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, Kay, and Anna. We've used up, 2/3 of our time, so it's time for us to open up to the audience for some questions. And I'll take a few questions at a time. So yes, from the first gentleman on the front. And any other questions?
Hello, Pei from Sweden. Very interesting, exciting possibilities. I want to ask you a question about when responsibility will move from technology to the doctor. I went through colonoscopy last year. The doctor got in, compared with thousands of other tumors, and then said it's okay. And then to be safe, it went to the pathologist and everything else. So when do we don't need a pathologist and trust the system?
This is a very important question because it addresses the responsibility. Can you sue an AI program? No, you cannot. At the end of the day, it's you who signs the patient's treatment. So that's why I was also saying earlier on that the AI can give you clinical decision support. But the final decision maker has to be a human being, in this case, a doctor. So but it will be very hard, because if you have had, let's say, 100 cases in AI, always you felt it's right. At the 101 case, you say no. So the better AI gets, the more difficult it is to say no. So here, the responsibility is really shifting to a machine. So I'm a bit uneasy, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know the solution, to be honest. That we need to see over the years to come.
Thank you, Peter. And then the gentleman in blue suits, please.
Esteban, an MBA candidate at Globis. I wanted to ask if we can use AI to make diagnosis recommendations or treatment recommendations. Do you think those recommendations should be made public to the patient, or should only be kept to the doctor?
That's a great question. And Anna, do you have any ideas?
That's an interesting question. I think it really depends on the type of technology or type of maybe the end service that whatever the person is building. I think you can tailor it in a way that's directed to patients. So if it's a more lighter, on the lighter side of things, like it less serious, maybe it doesn't need approval. Maybe on that end of the spectrum, it could be more patient facing. But then on the more severe or more complex end, I think the final decision needs to be made by the physicians. It would probably be on the physician side. But I do think that at the end of the day, even on the more deeper side, I think it's up to the physician and patient to both have the data and then have a discussion, because, from the previous question too, at the end of the day, the doctor is probably going to be the one that's making the final decision, or has the final go, at least for the time being. So I think that patients can access the data, but I think it's just up to them to discuss.
Any ideas, Kay?
Well, I don't really have further comments to what Anna just mentioned. I guess what I just want to mention that in terms of developing these new, diagnosing or treatment strategies, then you also have to clarify what sort of data and information from patients have been utilized. So that's the really ethical and privacy-related matters. So the proper legislation and regulations need to be in place to enable us to use these data and information for the development of such.
If I may add, I think we are in a dilemma here. On the one side, you need access to clinical data, molecular data for each individual in order to improve the future of diagnostics and therapy. On the other hand, it's a matter of privacy. And, there are countries like my own where it's impossible to literally get patient data out of a clinic. But it's necessary. So we need to have, and this is, by the way, also a major problem internationally, we need a consortium to figure out under what conditions can you release anonymized data. But, I give you my personal view. If anyone has my DNA, they probably know who I am. So, you know what I mean? It's if you have the combination of clinical data, molecular data, and the likes, the anonymity is limited. So here, I'm really not sure how we get along. What we do need, though, is a harmonized and stratified, protocol for clinical data and for biochemical and molecular data. This is what we need worldwide. And then we can think about how can we anonymize it in a way that it is not breakable, for most. So.
Thank you for your comments. And any other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Hi, it's Kathy Matsui. It's related, Peter, to your comment, is the question about Japanese clinical data. There are companies globally that have been trying to crack this diagnostics with AI challenge in Japan, but I've been told, like you said, with the Tohoku database, that there's very voluminous data available in this country, but the government and the universities are very protective about releasing this. Is that set to change at all? Any of you have any idea about this? I know that that's been talked about, but for all privacy reasons you just described, Peter, it's very, very difficult. So, but without that, I think it's very difficult for AI, companies and startups to really take off.
Right. It's at the end of the day, it's a catch-22 situation. From my point of view, I think the structures best suited to take care of all of this are the big clinical consortia. Mayo, Cleveland, whatnot. Why? Because they have it all under one roof and they already have access. So if they combine all the patients they see and do this work, that, I believe, will be the fastest, the structure that provides the fastest progress, right? So Kaiser Permanente, God knows. All these structures literally have it under one roof, and they see thousands of patients every day. And they do have the clinical data. They do have the molecular data if they wish. That maybe we could promote by, for example, NIH in the United States, taking care of additional criteria at the molecular level that a doctor normally would not want or would not take, right?
Yes. I also have one example from Mayo Clinic, which is the largest, group of hospitals globally. They run this platform. Mayo Clinic has tons of patient data. It's not anonymized, but through anonymization, the data value is lessened. So what they do is they invite certain startups. They let them use the data, patient data, to train their algorithm. But the point is that the startups are not available to download the data itself. The startups are the ones who bring in their models under the roof of Mayo Clinics, and they train their algorithm within the platform, and then they, deliver out only the algorithm without the data. So that's one way of training data, training AI, and making the best use of patient information.
I just wanted to maybe add one more thing. So the law around data in healthcare data in Japan is being changed very soon so that it's a little easier for researchers to use it in a way that's not insanely anonymized, so you can't even tell what's going on with the patient. So it's getting better, for one. And one of the interesting opportunities I see in Japan when that happens is, I think, routine annual health exam data in Japan. I think it's very interesting. We have the most number of CTs, MRIs around the world per population, and there's so much patient data, especially for imaging, that we're not able to leverage in research. I think tapping into this data that a lot of countries don't have will be a really interesting strength for Japan moving forward, and I would love to see startup trying to tackle this space.
Can I add? I just wanted to add one comment in terms of, I think we've been talking about, the medical facilities, hospitals, but I just wanted to underscore the criticality of patients' engagement, and obviously, we as a medical professional, standing in front lines in the medical field, we understand the importance of data and using AI, digital health technologies. But I would like to raise a question in terms of, from the patient side. For instance, if you see a tablet or a when you get vaccinated, I wonder how many percentage of the population would consider or associate these new technologies with AI or digital health technologies, and it's probably not that many. So, but I think having patients understanding their background, using their data to better create a future of healthcare, I think that's really important. And in comparison to therapeutics and vaccines, as we have briefly touched upon, the diagnosing opportunities have great potential potential. And I think, Shou with his team in ALIS have developed a new AI-based influenza diagnosing device. And I think this has a great potential because it's almost intuitive. You get the pharyngeal image of yourself, and then in association with the medical history, then you understand, you would know eventually whether you get infected with influenza or not in, a couple seconds. Then that's a really tangible way to understand the patient themselves, understand their data is actually being utilized to create, accumulate the, further data set to better or improve the healthcare overall. So I think, again, Shou's team is a great exemplification of using these technologies. And I think if there are much more to come after this, I think patients, it's a really one of the important stakeholders in this area. So I think that element, obviously, in addition to the medical professionals, we should not forget the importance of having patients and their families as very much important stakeholders in this area.
Yeah, thanks, Kay. I run a medical startup developing medical devices, and we have launched the medical AI camera, which can differentiate the inflammation patterns within the oral cavity. And it's approved here in Japan. It's widely used. It has diagnosed over 50,000 patients in Japan, and it's under reimbursement by the Japanese government. And this technology is also applicable to COVID or oral cancer and many other diseases in the future. So, technology is widely used across the continents, and it can, it has the potential to give diagnosis through even smartphones, right? So there are billions of smartphones globally, and if the AI were to be installed into these kind of smartphones, and if they were to be used in healthcare diagnosis, that makes a lot of change. Could you tell us, share some of your comments regarding the optimistic future of medicine and chances or opportunities regarding, the technology development? Starting from Peter and then Kay and Anna.
Being a scientist, I think we are entering a golden decade of biomedicine. And AI was the missing link because no human brain could deal with the masses of data that you need to have in order to compare and see tiny differences. So from this point of view, I believe that in the next decade, we will be able to return from the reductionist view. Remember, if you wanted to do science, you had a tiny system that you picked and you studied it in detail. Now we are in a situation that you can combine the data, generate a holistic view of a human being, and address these problems, potential problems, in a very specific and tailor-made way. So I'm very optimistic. What we need to, find a consensus is the privacy matter, the responsibility matter. So these are issues that are open, but I'm very positively looking forward. And by the way, the more specific you can tailor a drug, the cheaper it should become, provided you have all the platforms that allow you ahead of time to model, have artificial systems like organoids and the like. So I'm an optimist.
Next, I'll hand it over to Kay.
Sure. So I would like to just reiterate that given the current status and development of the new technology, be it AI or digital health technologies, I'm pretty optimistic like Peter is. And obviously, as I mentioned, it's not a silver bullet, so it should come along with, necessary discussions in terms of, appropriate legislations and regulations in place. But at the same time, the future is really bright. And making the most of these opportunities to really accelerate innovations for instance, drug discovery and development. And just a separate comment I just wanted to make is I just wanted to comment on the the human resources mobility or fluidity. For instance, in Japan, culturally speaking, the mobility of human resources is somewhat limited. So three of us went to the same medical school, Sho and Anna and myself. But we not only work in the clinical field, but we do working on several other areas. So I personally like to see many more opportunities, synergies in between, for instance, medical space, together with, for instance, entrepreneurship, VC, and working in the biopharmaceutical industry, because it's really using these new emerging technologies in various ways. So it's not a one-way solution. So that type of mobility in terms of human resources, I think, is really required in Japan. That's my humble opinion.
Thank you. So yes, I'm also very optimistic. People are living longer and healthcare spending is increasing every single year. So healthcare as an industry is definitely going to continue to grow. But I think COVID and, the appearance of ChatGPT as mass use has definitely opened doors to a new generation of digitization in healthcare, especially because of an industry that was so late on the trend of digitization compared to other industries. I'm very, very optimistic that this trend will continue. I also want to add to what Dr. Katsuno has mentioned, especially building innovation in the healthcare industry. It's very important for cross-sector collaboration, not just different stakeholders within healthcare, but I'm seeing that a lot of healthcare discussions are mostly within the healthcare industry, and we rarely see people from outside of the healthcare industry. So not just stakeholders within this industry, but other industries as well. I think we really need to collaborate and bring together new ideas to really leverage what technology and AI can do to make people live healthier. So I'm very excited to be part of this movement. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much to the four and to all the panelists. And one of the important policies of this G1 community is taking actions, right? So I'm very looking forward to each of us taking actions in order to bring this healthcare not only in Japan, but globally, in bringing this forward. So please join me in giving great applause to the panelists.